Valentine's Day campus betrayal. I carried a red paper bag in one hand and 2 train tickets in the other when I crossed the snow-dusted quad at Wellington University. The bag held Noah Mercer's favorite cinnamon pastries from a bakery 20 minutes off campus. The tickets were for New York. Leaving at 6 that evening, I had booked a small hotel near Washington Square, reserved a table at the Italian restaurant where we had celebrated our first anniversary, and even convinced Professor Hall to excuse Noah from Saturday's research meeting. For the past 3 months, Noah had barely looked up from his laptop. He was a senior honors student, president of the Campus Innovation Council, lead presenter for our education technology startup, and the person professors described as the future of responsible artificial intelligence. Every conversation ended with the same promise: after the competition, after the fellowship interview, after the donor gala, after Valentine's Day, Claire, I promise, things will calm down. I believed him because I had been believing him since we were 17. The student center was crowded when I arrived. Red balloons floated above the atrium, a string quartet played near the staircase, and nearly 200 students, professors, donors, and alumni faced a temporary stage beneath Wellington's blue and silver banners. I paused at the entrance. The annual founders' reception was not supposed to begin until 7. Noah had told me the afternoon event was only a rehearsal. I had planned to pull him away for 10 minutes, hand him the tickets, and watch his serious face finally soften. A first-year student wearing an event badge smiled at me. "You're here for the surprise, right?" I almost laughed. "I suppose I am. You made it just in time." She pointed toward the atrium. "He's about to do it." I followed her gesture. Noah stood on the stage in a charcoal suit, the one I had helped him choose for his Rhodes Scholarship interview. His dark hair was neatly combed, his shoulders straight, his expression calm and brilliant and practiced. Beside him stood Sloan Whitmore. Even before she turned, I recognized the smooth platinum blonde hair and the white dress that made her look like the center of every photograph. Sloan was president of the senior class, daughter of a university trustee, and the person who had spent 2 years making sure I understood that Wellington belonged to students like her. She had called me the scholarship ghost during a seminar because I rarely spoke in crowded rooms. She had laughed when I dropped my presentation cards after someone loosened the clasp on my folder. She had posted a cropped video of me freezing during a debate and captioned it, "Some people should stay behind their screens." Noah had told me not to react. "She wants attention," he had said. "Don't give it to her." Now he was giving her the entire room. A microphone rested in his hand. "There's one person who has challenged me more than anyone at Wellington," he said. The crowd laughed warmly. Sloan tilted her head and smiled at him. Noah continued, "She refuses to let me hide inside my work. She makes every room brighter. And she has taught me that the right partner doesn't stand behind you, she stands beside you." My fingers tightened around the train tickets. For one strange second, I thought he might be speaking about me before introducing me. I had stood behind him for years, but not because I lacked the right to stand beside him. I had written the first lines of code for Lumen in my parents' basement. I had built its adaptive learning engine. I had designed the privacy architecture that made schools trust us. My family foundation had funded the prototype when no venture group would take 2 teenagers seriously. Noah had become the face of Lumen because he loved rooms like this. I had become invisible because he told me visibility was not the same as value. Then Noah turned toward Sloan. "I don't want another day to pass without saying this in front of everyone who matters to us." The room became very still. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. It was not an engagement ring. We were 22, and even Noah understood that proposing marriage in the student center would look absurd. Instead, inside the box lay a silver key on a blue ribbon, the ceremonial key to the private office assigned to the 2 winners of Wellington's National Innovators Fellowship. Only one winner had been announced: Noah. The second name was supposed to remain confidential until the evening reception. He held the key towards Sloan. "I asked the committee to name you as Lumen's new public strategy partner," he said, "and I'm asking you to be my partner in every other way too." Gasps rose around the atrium. Sloan covered her mouth. Her eyes filled with perfect, shining tears. "Noah," she whispered into the microphone. "I love you," he said. The applause began before she answered. Sloan nodded. and Noah placed the ribbon around her neck. Then she gripped his lapels and kissed him, not a startled kiss, not a confused mistake. It was the kiss of two people who had already decided what they were to each other. The quartet stopped playing, but the cheering grew louder. My red paper bag slipped against my coat. One pastry box fell sideways inside it, the train tickets bent in my hand. A woman near me sighed, "They're perfect together." Perfect, that word made Noah look toward the entrance. His eyes found mine. Across the atrium, his smile vanished for half a second. The room seemed to fold inward. He saw the red bag, he saw the tickets, he saw me standing beneath a paper heart that read "Love takes courage." He knew exactly why I had come. He did not step off the stage, he did not say my name. Sloane followed his gaze. When she saw me, surprise crossed her face, followed by something smaller and sharper, satisfaction, perhaps, or fear. Then she leaned closer to Noah as if claiming her place before I could challenge it. I did not give either of them the scene they expected. I turned around. The first-year volunteer called after me. "Wait, don't you want to stay for the announcement?" "No," I said, "I already heard it." I made it through the glass doors before my hands began to shake. Snow drifted across the stone steps. Students hurried past carrying flowers and coffee, laughing into scarves. The whole campus looked painfully normal. I sat on a bench behind the library and placed the bag beside me. My chest hurt, but the pain felt distant, like it belonged to someone I was watching from across a room. I could have gone back. I could have thrown the pastries at Noah. I could have told the crowd that the future of responsible artificial intelligence had been sleeping in my apartment 3 nights a week. I could have shown Sloane the messages he had sent me that morning. "Happy Valentine's Day, genius. Dinner after the reception. I love you." Instead, I opened my laptop first. I cancelled the hotel and train tickets. Then I logged into Bennett Educational Trust and suspended the $4 million campus innovation grant attached to Lumen's fellowship program. Next, I opened the intellectual property portal and revoked Wellington Innovate's temporary license to use the Lumen source code, effective immediately pending an ownership review. Finally, I called Elena Park, the attorney who had managed my family's foundation since my mother died. She answered on the second ring. "Claire, aren't you supposed to be surprising Noah?" "I did," I said. Something in my voice changed hers. "What happened?" "My boyfriend just declared his love for Sloane Whitmore in front of half the university." Elena was silent. "He also announced that she is Lumen's new strategy partner." I continued, "A role I never approved." Another silence, colder this time. "Claire, did he transfer any rights?" "He couldn't legally. That wasn't my question." I looked at the student center through the falling snow. Applause still pulsed faintly behind the glass. "Start an audit," I said. "Every signature, every grant form, every competition entry, every licensing document filed in the last 3 years. Are you sure?" Noah finally appeared at the top of the steps. He scanned the quad wildly until he saw me. Then he started running. "Yes," I said, "I'm sure." I closed the laptop before he reached the bench. "Claire," he was breathing hard, "please, you have to let me explain." My phone vibrated with confirmation that the grant had been suspended. I stood, picked up the red paper bag, and handed it to a student passing by. "Happy Valentine's Day," I told her. Then I looked at Noah. "Explain it to the fellowship committee," I said, and walked away. By the time I reached my apartment, I had 37 missed calls. Half an hour later, I had 152. Then someone began pounding on my door. Noah knocked like the building was on fire. "Claire, open the door." I stood in the narrow hallway of my off-campus apartment with my coat still on. The living room behind me held evidence of the evening I had planned: a small overnight bag, my black dress folded over a chair, and a card addressed to the person I had believed was my safest place. The pounding stopped. His voice came through the wood. "Lower now. I know you're there." My phone lit up again. Noah's contact photo showed him laughing on the pier near my father's lake house, 3 summers earlier. Before Wellington turned him into someone who mistook applause for love, I let the call ring out. "Please," he said, "just listen for 5 minutes." I opened the door but left the security chain in place. Noah stared at me through the narrow gap. Snow had melted in his hair, his tie was loose, and the polished confidence he had worn on stage had disappeared. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. he said. I almost smiled. Which part? He blinked. The public declaration, the kiss. Giving my role to the woman who spent 2 years humiliating me, or telling her you love her 4 hours after telling me the same thing. His face tightened. I know how it looked. You know what it was, Claire, Sloane. And I are together. He lowered his voice. It's complicated. No, differential equations are complicated. Neural language models are complicated. Dating 2 women requires planning. But the idea itself is very simple. He looked down the hallway, aware that our neighbors could hear. Noah had always cared about the audience, even when he claimed he did not. Can I come inside? He asked. No. His phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and I watched the color leave his face. What did you do? I protected my work. You froze the Bennett grant. I suspended it. You revoked the code license. Yes, Claire, the national demonstration is in 9 days. I know, the fellowship depends on that demonstration. I know that too. He pressed his palm against the doorframe. You can't make a decision like this because you're angry. The shaking in my hands stopped. For years, Noah had praised my intelligence when it benefited him and questioned my judgment when it threatened him. Hearing the patterns so clearly was almost a relief. I did not make a new decision, I said. I enforced agreements that have existed since Lumen was incorporated. You're punishing the whole team. No, I am preventing the team from presenting software they no longer have permission to use. You know what that means? Yes. It means the person who owns the software has to approve the people representing it. He stared at me. Noah knew the ownership structure. Of course he did, Bennett. Educational Trust held 83% of Lumen Learning Systems. I held the controlling vote. My name appeared on the original patent applications, the architecture documents, and every source code repository from the first prototype. But over time, legal facts had become background noise to him. He gave interviews, he accepted awards, he stood on stages under giant photographs of his own face. I stayed in the engineering lab, and people began to assume the visible founder was the only founder. Eventually, Noah began to assume it too. You said you didn't want a public role, he said. I said I didn't want to become a campus celebrity. You asked me to handle presentations. I did not ask you to erase me. His expression shifted, panic turning into calculation. Sloane's appointment was strategic. Her family has connections to the state education board. Her father can get Lumen into 50 school districts, and sleeping with her was part of the strategy. He flinched. I never meant to hurt you. That sentence is what people say when they want credit for intentions after choosing actions. He closed his eyes for a moment. I was going to tell you. When? After the fellowship, after you used my code to win it. His eyes opened. Our code. There it was, not love, not guilt, ownership. I stepped closer to the door. Did Sloane know we were still together? Noah hesitated. The pause answered before he did. I told her we had been drifting apart, he said. That was not my question. I told her we were basically over. While you slept here on Sunday, he looked away. While you asked me to review your fellowship speech on Tuesday, Claire, while you texted me this morning that you loved me. His voice cracked. I do love you. I felt something inside me go still for months. I had been afraid Noah had stopped loving me. The truth was worse and simpler. He loved me in the way some people loved libraries, as a quiet place that stored everything they needed. While asking for nothing in return, he loved my patience, my code, my family's money, my editing, my apartment, my belief in him. He had just chosen someone else for the stage. His phone rang again. This time I could see the name reflected in the glass of the framed print behind him. Dean Alvarez. Noah silenced it. There's an emergency meeting tonight, he said. The Innovation Council, the Fellowship Committee, and the University Council. They're saying the grant suspension triggers a compliance review. It does. You knew that would happen. Yes, his face hardened. You could destroy everything we built. Noah, I am the reason it can survive you. He stepped back as if I had struck him. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he looked past me into the apartment. His gaze landed on the overnight bag and the card on the table. What was the surprise? He asked quietly. I did not answer. He saw the edge of the train reservation beneath the card. Grief crossed his face, genuine enough to hurt. New York, 4 days, I said. The restaurant from our first anniversary. the bookstore you wanted to visit, no laptops after dinner. He rubbed a hand over his mouth. I thought you were distant because you were stressed, I continued. I thought we needed time away from everyone. I thought I was protecting what we had. I'm sorry, you're frightened, I'm both. At least that is honest. He looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. Are you ending this? The question should have felt enormous. We had been together for 4 years. Our lives were tangled through classes, friends, business documents, family holidays, passwords, and plans made so often they had started to feel like memories. But the answer arrived without struggle. Yes. His jaw trembled, because of one terrible decision. No. Because today forced me to count all the decisions I kept calling temporary. I began closing the door. He put one hand against it, not pushing, only stopping the movement for a second. What about Lumen? I looked through the gap at the person I had once trusted more than myself. Lumen was never yours to give away. I closed the door and locked it. Noah stood outside for another minute. I heard him answer Dean Alvarez's call in a voice stripped of confidence. Then his footsteps moved down the stairs at 7:30. I opened my laptop at the kitchen table. Elena appeared on the screen beside 2 university attorneys, the chair of the Innovation Council, the director of Wellington's incubator, and 6 members of the Fellowship Committee. Noah joined last. Sloane sat beside him, the silver key still hung around her neck. No one mentioned Valentine's Day when the emergency meeting began. Dean Alvarez adjusted his glasses and spoke with the careful tone administrators used when every sentence might later appear in a legal filing. We have received notice that Bennett Educational Trust has suspended the innovation grant supporting the Lumen pilot and that Lumen Learning Systems has revoked Wellington University's temporary software license. Every face on the screen turned toward me. Ms. Bennett, he continued, can you confirm those notices are authentic? Yes, and that Bennett Educational Trust is the principal funder of the National Innovators Fellowship? Yes. And that you hold the controlling interest in Lumen Learning Systems? Yes, 83% through the trust, with direct authority over licensing and public representation. Sloane's expression changed. Until that moment, she had looked irritated rather than worried, as though the meeting were an inconvenience caused by an emotional ex-girlfriend. Her fingers moved to the silver key at her throat. Noah leaned toward his camera. Claire, this is a personal dispute. It has nothing to do with the quality of the project. Elena spoke before I could. Mr. Mercer, an authorized appointment of a company representative is not a personal dispute. Sloane sat straighter. Noah told me the Fellowship Committee approved my role. The chair of the committee, Professor Danner, frowned. We approved no such appointment. Noah's eyes flicked toward Sloane. She pulled the ribbon over her head and placed the key on the table. The announcement was symbolic. Noah said quickly. Sloane was going to help with outreach. Using what title? Elena asked. He hesitated. Sloane answered, co-founder and director of public strategy. The silence was immediate. Professor Danner removed her glasses. Co-founder. Noah looked trapped. That language was still being discussed. By whom? I asked. He ignored me. Dean Alvarez glanced at a document. The printed program for tonight's reception lists Ms. Whitmore as co-founder of Lumen and co-recipient of the fellowship. I had known Noah was planning to give her a role. I had not known he intended to rewrite history in ink. Send me the program, Elena said. A university lawyer shared it on screen. There it was beneath the blue Wellington crest. Noah Mercer and Sloane Whitmore, CO founders. Lumen Learning Systems, National Innovators Fellows. My name appeared nowhere. 4 years of work disappeared in 12 words. I did not cry. I had cried enough during the hours when Noah called my anxiety inconvenient, when he accepted praise for research I wrote. When Sloane mocked me and he asked me to be the bigger person. The absence of my name felt less like a new wound than proof that the old ones had been real. Dean Alvarez cleared his throat. Who submitted this information? The event coordinator, a nervous graduate student, appeared in a small window. Mr. Mercer's office sent the final biographies. His office, I repeated. Noah had been assigned a desk in the incubator suite. Somewhere along the way, he had started calling it an office. The University Council spoke. The Fellowship Committee also received an intellectual property certification listing Mr. Mercer as sole authorized student representative for Lumen. The document bears Ms. Bennett's electronic signature. Elena turned to me. Did you sign that? No. Noah's face went blank. The meeting changed in that instant. Before, the university had been dealing with a donor dispute, a messy relationship, and an embarrassing public announcement. Now there was a potentially falsified legal document attached to a national competition. Dean Alvarez looked at Noah. Do you know how Ms. Bennett's signature appeared on the certification? Noah swallowed. Claire signs dozens of documents. She may not remember. I stared at him. He had chosen the lie quickly. Too quickly. Elena's voice became very calm. We will provide signature records and access logs by morning. Until then, no one should characterize my client's memory. Sloane pushed back from the table. Noah, you told me Claire had signed off. She did. I did not. I said. He looked at me then, anger flashing beneath the fear. You approved the general strategy months ago. I approved you presenting the product. I did not approve you claiming sole authority, appointing Sloane, or removing my name. The company needed a coherent story. A coherent story. I repeated. It was a polished phrase for theft. Professor Dana folded her hands. Pending review. Mr. Mercer's fellowship designation is suspended. The Lumen demonstration is postponed. And all project funds administered through Wellington are frozen. Noah's face tightened. You cannot do that 9 days before nationals. We can, she said, and we have. Dean Alvarez continued. Mr. Mercer will also be placed on administrative leave from the Incubator and Innovation Council. Ms. Whitmore's fellowship announcement is void because it was never authorized. Sloane's cheeks turned red. Am I being accused of something? Not at this time, he said, but you will be interviewed regarding the submission materials, your knowledge of Lumen's ownership, and any communications concerning Ms. Bennett. She looked at me with open resentment. For 2 years, Sloane had treated me like a person without power. Now she was discovering that quiet and powerless were not the same thing. The meeting ended at 9:12. Noah remained on screen after most participants disconnected. Claire, he said. Elena did not leave, neither did I. He looked older than he had that morning. If the signature review becomes formal, they could delay my graduation. Yes, I could lose the Rhodes endorsement. Yes. His voice sharpened. You know how hard I worked. I thought of the nights I corrected his research citations while he slept, the weekends I rewrote pitch decks because he had promised sponsors a Monday draft. The code patches I completed while he gave interviews about his vision. I know exactly how hard we worked. I said, you're enjoying this? No, I am finally refusing to protect you from it. I ended the call. For a long time. I sat at the table without moving. Elena watched me through the screen. Are you all right? No, that is allowed. I looked at the dark window above the sink. My reflection seemed unfamiliar. Pale face, tired eyes, hair still damp from snow. Not a powerful majority owner, not a brilliant engineer, just a 22-year-old woman whose boyfriend had kissed her bully in front of 200 people. Did I overreact? I asked. Elena's expression softened. You suspended access after learning that your company, code, title, and signature may have been used without permission. Your heartbreak explains the timing. It does not invalidate the action. What if people think I destroyed his future because he cheated? People prefer simple stories. Our job is to document the true one. After we disconnected, I opened the card I had written for Noah. 4 years, and I still choose you. I read the sentence twice, then I tore the card down the middle. The first half went into the trash easily. I held the second half for several minutes before letting it go. Noah and I met before Wellington knew either of our names. We were 17. Competing in a statewide science challenge held in a high school gym that smelled like floor wax and overheated extension cords. His project was a beautiful presentation about unequal access to tutoring. Mine was an ugly but functional software prototype that adjusted practice questions based on how a student made mistakes. His display board had color-coded charts. My laptop crashed twice. He won the communication prize. I won the technical prize. Afterward, he found me sitting under the bleachers trying to repair a corrupted database. Your idea could change classrooms, he said. Your idea had better fonts. I replied. He laughed, sat beside me, and offered half his sandwich. Lumen began 6 weeks later. At first, it was hours in the purest sense of the word. I wrote code at my kitchen table while Noah interviewed teachers. He convinced a middle school principal to test the prototype. I built a dashboard overnight when the teachers said they needed progress reports. He handled questions when my voice locked during presentations. I noticed when his confidence became carelessness and pulled him back. Before he promised features we could not deliver, my father gave us $50,000 from the Bennett Educational Trust, but only after making us present a real budget. "You are not funding Noah," he told me privately, "you are funding your own work. Do not confuse the two." I was offended. I thought love made that warning unnecessary. When we were accepted to Wellington, the university incubator offered us lab space. Reporters liked Noah immediately. He spoke in complete sentences, looked directly into cameras, and knew how to turn every technical problem into a human story. I did not. During our first campus interview, a journalist asked why I had created Lumen. I tried to explain that I had struggled with auditory processing after a childhood illness and often needed written material to understand what teachers said aloud. Halfway through the answer, my throat closed. Noah stepped in smoothly. "Claire believes no student should be judged by the speed at which they process information," he said. It was exactly what I meant. The article called him Lumen's visionary founder and me his reserved technical collaborator. I laughed about it at the time. By sophomore year, I stopped laughing. Noah's face appeared on the incubator website. My name moved below the fold. He was invited to panels about ethical technology while I sat in the audience answering his texts about encryption standards. He told me not to worry. "Everyone on the inside knows what you do." That sentence became a cage disguised as reassurance. Sloan entered our lives during junior year. She joined the Innovation Council after her father donated $10 million to Wellington's new entrepreneurship center. She was smart, socially fearless, and skilled at identifying exactly where another person felt uncertain. The first time we met, she looked at my plain sweater and asked whether I worked in the lab. "I co-founded Lumen," I said. Her eyebrows lifted. "Really? Noah never mentions a co-founder." He was standing beside us. He laughed awkwardly. "Claire hates attention." Sloan smiled at me. How convenient for him. For 1 second, I thought she was defending me. Then she added, "Some people are better suited to support roles." Her bullying was rarely obvious enough to report. It arrived in polished comments and plausible accidents. She scheduled innovation meetings during my required laboratory course, then criticized my absence. She removed my name from a panel invitation and said the form must have been corrupted. She accidentally displayed an early video of me stammering during a rehearsal while introducing Noah as a natural communicator. When I complained, Noah always had an explanation. Sloan was competitive. Sloan had pressure from her father. Sloan did not understand my anxiety. Sloan could help Lumen. Why do I have to absorb her cruelty because she might be useful? I asked him once. "Because we're building something bigger than our feelings," he said. I should have heard the warning in the word hour. He meant my feelings. By fall of senior year, Noah and Sloan traveled together for donor meetings. She began appearing in Lumen photographs. He told me it was temporary, just until the National Fellowship decision. I was busy rewriting the adaptive assessment engine, and part of me was relieved to avoid the attention. That was how erasure worked. It used the preferences you genuinely had and stretched them until they became permission for someone else to take everything. The morning after Valentine's Day, I woke to 43 new messages. Some were from friends asking if I was all right. Some were from Lumen team members confused about the frozen systems. 3 were from reporters. The campus newspaper had already published a headline: "Valentine's Declaration ends in fellowship suspension." The article included a photograph of Noah and Sloan kissing beneath the Wellington banner. In the corner of the image, barely visible near the doors, stood a woman holding a red bag. The caption identified me as an unidentified attendee. I stared at the words until they blurred, then I laughed. It was not a happy sound, but it broke something open. I forwarded the article to the editor with one sentence: "The unidentified attendee is Claire Bennett, co-founder and controlling owner of Lumen Learning Systems." Within 12 minutes, the editor replied. Within 20, The caption changed. By noon, the entire article had been rewritten. Sloan called me at 1:14 in the afternoon. I watched her name flash across my screen until the final vibration faded. Then she called again. On the third attempt, I answered. Claire. Her voice was controlled, but I could hear something underneath it. Anger, embarrassment, or fear. We need to talk. No, you want to talk. I have not identified a need. She inhaled sharply. Can we meet somewhere private? I am not meeting you alone. For God's sake, I'm not going to attack you. You have spent 2 years attacking me in ways that left no witnesses. Silence. I didn't call to fight, she said. Then say what you called to say. Noah told me you broke up in October. The sentence landed differently than I expected. I had imagined Sloan knowing everything and enjoying the victory. The possibility that Noah had lied to her did not make me sympathetic. It made the betrayal larger. He spent Christmas with my family. I said, he said you were keeping up appearances because of the company. He stayed in my apartment Sunday night. He said he was picking up project files. He kissed me goodbye yesterday morning. Sloan said nothing. I continued. He texted me that he loved me at 8:30. Her breath caught. You knew we had dated. I said, you knew he had not publicly announced a breakup. You knew enough to ask questions. I did ask. And you accepted answers that allowed you to get what you wanted. Her voice sharpened. You think I wanted to be humiliated in front of the university. I think you wanted to humiliate me in front of the university. The fact that he also lied to you does not erase that. That's not fair. I nearly ended the call. Fairness was a word Sloan used the way wealthy students used financial aid forms, as an abstraction with no personal urgency. You posted the video of my debate freeze, I said. You told the Innovation Council I was unstable. You removed my name from meetings. You called me Noah's emotional support coder in front of the fellowship panel. It was a joke. No, it was a strategy. She went quiet again when she spoke. Her voice had lost some of its Polish. I thought you were holding him back. There it was, not denial, just justification. Because I did not enjoy performing for donors. Because every time he was offered something, he had to check whether you were comfortable. Every trip, every interview, every dinner, he was always protecting you. I looked around my apartment at the piles of technical binders, draft speeches, and grant reports I had completed for Noah. Did he tell you that? I saw it. You saw him mention me before making decisions. You did not see who made those decisions possible. Sloan gave a bitter laugh. Now everyone sees. Congratulations. The cruelty in her tone was familiar enough to steady me. This is what you wanted, isn't it? She continued. You let him take the spotlight for years. Then the second he chose someone else, you pulled the entire university into your breakup. I set my phone on speaker and opened the folder Elena had sent that morning. Inside were preliminary access logs. Did you know the fellowship certification carried my electronic signature? I asked. No. Did you know the program identified you as Lumen's co-founder? Noah said the title reflected my new role. You attended the strategy meeting where he proposed adding you as outreach director. I rejected it in writing. That was months ago. Did he show you a later approval? Sloan hesitated. No, she admitted. Then this is no longer a breakup story. What are you saying? I am saying the university is investigating falsified documents and unauthorized use of company property. You should get your own counsel before answering more questions. For the first time since I had known her, Sloan sounded young. Am I in trouble? I don't know. You're the one controlling the investigation. No, evidence controls the investigation. She was quiet for several seconds, then she said, You always do that. Do what? Speak like you're above everyone. I almost laughed. Sloan, I spent 2 years making myself smaller so people like you would feel comfortable. You interpreted silence as weakness and precision as arrogance. That is not my problem anymore. I ended the call an hour later. I received a message from Professor Hall asking me to come to the engineering building. I considered refusing. The idea of crossing campus made my stomach tighten. Everyone had seen the photograph by then. Everyone knew the unidentified woman had a name, but hiding had already cost me enough. I put on a dark green coat, tied my hair back, and walked through the center of the quad. People looked, some whispered. One student raised a phone, then lowered it when I met his eyes. 2 girls from my statistics class approached me near the library. Claire, one said. We just wanted to say we're sorry. For what? For believing Noah built Lumen alone. The second girl nodded, and for laughing at that video Sloan posted. We didn't know what happened before it. Their apology did not repair anything, but it mattered that they offered it without asking me to comfort them. Thank you, I said. Professor Hall waited in the lab beside 3 members of the Lumen engineering team, Mateo Ruiz, Priya Shah, and Jordan Kim. Their faces were tense. Before we discuss anything, Priya said, we owe you an apology. I took off my coat slowly. Why? Mateo looked ashamed. Noah told us you were stepping away after graduation. He said Sloan was replacing you in operations. I never worked in operations. We know that now, Jordan said. He changed your repository permissions last month. We assumed you requested it. A cold line moved down my back. Changed them how? Priya opened her laptop. My administrator access to Lumen's campus development branch had been downgraded on January 19th. Noah's account became sole project administrator. A second administrator had been added 3 days later, Sloan Whitmore. She never wrote code. I said, no, Mateo replied. But her account could approve releases, view user data reports, and authorize exports. Did she access student data? We don't know yet. Professor Hall stepped closer. The university's information security office is pulling logs. I sat down because my knees no longer trusted me. Noah had not made one impulsive Valentine's confession. He had spent weeks building a structure in which Sloan would stand beside him while I disappeared. Priya turned the laptop toward me. There's more. A folder titled National Demo Final contained a version of Lumen I had never approved. The privacy controls had been simplified to make the system run faster during presentations. Real student usage data had been copied into a demonstration environment. That violates our pilot agreement, I said. We told Noah, Jordan replied. He said you approved an exception. I did not. Professor Hall's mouth tightened. Then the review is no longer limited to the fellowship documents. I stared at the screen. Noah had always believed rules were barriers between him and a good outcome. I had always been the person who quietly rebuilt those barriers after he pushed through them. This time, I had not been there to catch him. Lock the repository, I said. Preserve every log, no deletions, no updates, no remote access. Priya nodded immediately. And the student data, we isolate it and notify the privacy office, she said. Professor Hall studied me. You understand this may become a formal research misconduct case. Yes. You also understand it may damage Lumen's reputation. Yes. Do you still want to proceed? I thought of Noah on stage saying the right partner stood beside him. He had confused loyalty with concealment. Proceed, I said. The investigation took over a locked conference room on the 4th floor of Wellington's administration building. Elena brought in a digital forensics firm from Boston. The university assigned 2 compliance officers, an information security specialist, and an outside academic integrity consultant. Every laptop was imaged, every login was preserved, every version of every fellowship form was compared against the original. I did not sit in the room while they worked. That decision was deliberate. By Friday, the campus had divided the story into teams. Some students called me brave, others called me vindictive. Anonymous posts claimed I had used family money to punish a boyfriend for falling in love with someone more confident. A popular student account posted a poll asking whether donors should be allowed to cancel academic futures over romantic drama. I wanted to reply to every lie. Elena advised me not to. Facts are slower than gossip, she said. They are also harder to remove once established, so I attended class. I answered questions in machine learning seminar even when 30 people turned to watch. I ate lunch in the student union instead of carrying it back to the lab. I met with the Lumen engineers and focused on securing the pilot data. Each ordinary action felt like walking onto a stage I had spent years avoiding. On Friday evening, Professor Hall joined me in the lab. You should go home, he said. So should you. I have tenure. I can waste my nights responsibly. I smiled despite myself. He sat on the edge of a desk. I owe you an apology. You didn't know what Noah was doing. I knew he was becoming the sole voice of a project with 2 founders. I accepted the version of the story that required the least administrative effort. That is not the same as helping him. No, but institutions rarely erase people through one deliberate act, we do it by repeatedly choosing convenience. His honesty hurt because it named what I had not wanted to see. My phone rang before I could answer. Elena, Claire, can you come to the conference room? What did you find? Enough that I do not want to explain it over the phone. 20 minutes later, I sat across from a forensic analyst named Marisol Vega. She had arranged documents in 4 neat stacks. The electronic signature on the fellowship certification was generated using an image file stored in Mr. Mercer's private cloud account. She said she showed me the metadata. The image had been cropped from a legitimate licensing agreement I signed sophomore year. He copied my signature. Yes, how many times? That is the second issue. She slid the first stack toward me. There were 19 documents, travel approvals, grant amendments, competition releases, vendor payments, and data sharing acknowledgements. Every one carried my copied signature. The second stack contained expense records. Noah had charged hotel suites, private car services, and expensive dinners to the Lumen outreach budget. Some trips matched real donor meetings. Others matched weekends when he told me he was visiting his sick grandmother in Connecticut. Sloane's name appeared on several guest registrations. The third stack contained internal messages. Noah, Claire will never agree to a live data demo. Sloane, then stop asking. You are the public founder. Act like it. Noah, she controls the license. Sloane, only because you keep treating her like she does. Noah, legally, she does. Sloane, legal is not the same as real. Everyone thinks it's yours. My stomach turned. Sloane had not known Noah and I were still together. That part might be true, but she had known I owned Lumen. She had encouraged him to behave as if I did not. Another message appeared 2 weeks later. Sloane, the debate clip worked. People already think she can't handle pressure. Noah, take it down. She was upset. Sloane, you defended her publicly. That was enough. Privately, you know I'm right. Noah, just don't push her too hard before nationals. I need the new engine finished. I stopped reading. The room became too bright. He knew, I said. Elena sat beside me. Yes, he knew she posted the video on purpose. Yes, and he only cared because he needed me to finish the system. No one answered. 4 months. I had replayed every cruel moment, wondering if I was too sensitive. Noah had watched the cruelty become useful and decided not to interrupt it. Marisol waited until I looked up. There is one more category. The fourth stack was the smallest. It contained applications for the Wellington Academic Leadership Prize, the Rhodes Endorsement, and the National Innovators Fellowship. In each application, Noah described himself as the creator of Lumen's adaptive engine. One essay included a paragraph I recognized. I had written it in my private research journal after our first middle school pilot. A student's wrong answer is not empty data. It is a map of the path they took. If we treat error as evidence rather than failure, technology can meet a learner where they actually are. Noah had copied it word for word. Below it, he wrote, I developed this philosophy after years of direct experimentation. The academic integrity consultant spoke quietly, using a partner's unpublished writing. In a competitive application without attribution may constitute plagiarism. May, I asked, we must complete the process. I looked down at the papers. The cheating hurt differently from the kiss. The kiss had broken the future I imagined. These documents reached backward and rearranged the past. They made me question every award I celebrated with him, every speech I helped edit. Every night he thanked me by saying he could not have done it without me. He had meant it literally. He just never intended anyone else to know. Does Sloane have exposure? I asked. Marisol tapped the messages. She appears to have encouraged misrepresentation and accessed restricted systems. We have not found evidence that she forged signatures. And Noah, Elena's face was composed. He is facing university discipline, civil claims, possible loss of fellowship endorsements, and potential referral regarding unauthorized access and misuse of grant funds. I closed my eyes. A small, stupid part of me remembered Noah at 17, sitting under the bleachers with half a sandwich. I wished the truth were smaller. Then I remembered the line, I need the new engine finished, send the evidence to the university. I said. Elena watched me carefully. All of it, I said. The campus newspaper requested an interview on Saturday morning. At first, I refused. I did not want my pain flattened into a dramatic headline between sports scores and dining hall complaints. But by afternoon, a national education blog had repeated the anonymous claim that I had withdrawn funding. Because Noah rejected me, the lie was becoming permanent through repetition. I agreed to speak on the record. With Elena present, the reporter, Maya Chen, met us in a quiet room at the library. She was a junior with a recorder, 3 sharpened pencils, and none of the excited curiosity I had come to expect from people discussing public humiliation. Before we begin, she said, you can decline any question. I'm interested in the ownership and research issues, not details of your private relationship beyond what is already public. Thank you. She asked when Lumen began, who created the original system, how the company was structured, and what rights Wellington had under the campus license. She asked why I had remained out of public view. Because I preferred building to presenting, I said. And because the person I trusted to represent our work gradually began representing it as his work. Did you suspend the grant because you saw Mr. Mercer kiss Ms. Whitmore? I considered the question. I began reviewing the project because the public announcement showed me that unauthorized decisions had been made. The kiss told me my relationship was over. The false title, unapproved fellowship appointment, copied signature, restricted repository access, and student data violations made the grant suspension necessary. Would you have acted if there had been no romantic betrayal, if I had learned the same facts? Yes, Maya nodded. Some students say your wealth gives you disproportionate power over the university. That is a fair concern. Elena glanced at me, but I continued, private donors should not control academic outcomes based on personal preference. That is why the grant agreement contains objective compliance requirements and independent review. I suspended funding under those requirements. I did not instruct the university to punish anyone. Do you want Noah expelled? My throat tightened at the sound of his first name. I want the evidence evaluated under the same rules that would apply if he were not popular. The article appeared Sunday evening. Its headline was quieter than the first. Lumen co-founder alleges forged signatures, data violations in fellowship project. For the first time, the story was not about a jealous girlfriend and a romantic winner. It was about authorship, institutional convenience, and the cost of confusing visibility with ownership. The response changed almost immediately. Faculty members who had praised Noah began issuing careful statements. Students from the computer science department shared screenshots of old repository commits carrying my name. A teacher from our first pilot posted a photograph of 17-year-old me crouched beside a row of battered school laptops. Claire built the earliest version in my classroom, she wrote. Noah was a gifted advocate, but she was the engineer. The support should have felt good. Instead, it exhausted me. People who had ignored me for years now wanted statements, photographs, and explanations. Every message reminded me how easily the truth could have been found if anyone had bothered to look. On Monday, I received an email from the Office of Student Conduct, formal notice of complaint, harassment, and retaliation. The complaint was against Sloan. It included the debate video, altered meeting schedules, messages encouraging Noah to exclude me, and testimony from 2 students who had heard her call me too unstable to lead. The university asked whether I wanted to participate in a no-contact order. I read the email 3 times. For 2 years, I had never filed a complaint. I had convinced myself each incident was too small, too deniable, too embarrassing to explain. Now the incidents had been assembled into a pattern. I checked yes that afternoon. Sloan confronted me outside the engineering building. She was not supposed to contact me yet. The interim order had not been issued. Snow blew across the walkway, catching in her hair, without the white dress and stage lights. She looked tired. You filed a harassment case, she demanded. The university opened one based on evidence from the investigation. You could stop it. I could refuse to participate. I am not going to. Her eyes flashed. You have already taken the fellowship, the project, and Noah. I did not take Noah. You can keep the part of him that chose this. She flinched. They suspended me from student government, she said. My father is furious. Every internship I applied For his asking questions. You posted a humiliating video of me to damage my credibility. It was one video. It was one piece of a campaign. I was competing with you. No, you were punishing me for existing in a place you wanted to own. Her mouth opened, but no answer came. Students passed around us. Pretending not to listen, Sloane lowered her voice. Do you know what it is like to have everyone suddenly look at you as if you are cruel? Yes, I said, I know exactly what it is like to have everyone believe a story about you because someone more popular told it first. The words stopped her for a moment. I saw something human beneath her anger, not innocence, recognition. Then Noah appeared at the far end of the walkway. He had not been permitted inside the incubator since the investigation began. He wore jeans and an old Wellington sweatshirt instead of his usual blazer. People moved around him with the awkward distance reserved for fallen celebrities. Sloane turned toward him. He stopped when he saw us together. For 1 second, the three of us stood in the same arrangement as Valentine's Day. Noah between us, Sloane waiting to be chosen, me expected to retreat. I did not. Noah walked closer. Claire, can we talk? No, it's about the investigation. Then contact Elena. Sloane stared at him. You told me the signature was authorized. He looked at her, then at me. This isn't the place. You told me she had approved everything. Sloane, you lied to me. Noah's face hardened. You knew Claire was uncomfortable with public roles. You were the one who said we had to move forward without her. Sloane stepped back. Do not put this on me. You pushed for the title. You gave it to me. Their alliance cracked in front of me, not because either had discovered integrity, but because consequences made loyalty expensive. Noah turned to me. You see what she's doing? The old reflex rose inside me. Defend him, interpret him, separate his worst act from who he really was. Then I remembered the messages. Don't push her too hard before nationals. I need the new engine finished. I see both of you clearly, I said. I walked into the engineering building without looking back. The academic integrity hearing took place 12 days after Valentine's Day. By then, the snow had begun to melt along the edges of the quad, leaving gray banks beside the sidewalks. Wellington looked less romantic and more honest without the clean white surface. The hearing panel included 3 faculty members, 1 administrator, a graduate student representative, and an outside expert in research ethics. Noah sat with an attorney at one table, Elena and I sat at another. Sloane waited in a separate room to testify. No cameras were allowed, no speeches were supposed to be dramatic. Still, the room felt like a stage. The chair began with the allegations: plagiarism in competitive applications, falsification of signatures, unauthorized access changes, misrepresentation of company ownership, misuse of restricted student data, and improper grant expenses. Noah pleaded responsible to administrative errors and not responsible to intentional misconduct. His attorney argued that Lumen had always operated informally because its founders were romantic partners. Passwords were shared, responsibilities overlapped. Claire had allowed Noah broad discretion for years and objected only after the relationship ended. The argument was clever because it used my trust as evidence against me. Then Marisol presented the timeline. She showed the signature file copied from an old agreement, the dates it was attached to later documents, and the login history from Noah's private account. She showed messages in which he admitted I had not approved the live data demonstration. She showed him asking Sloane to keep me calm until the new engine was completed. Metadata did not care that we had once loved each other. Professor Hall testified next. Ms. Bennett consistently objected to using identifiable student data in demonstrations. He said her position was documented in lab meetings and technical notes. Noah's attorney asked whether I had delegated presentation authority to Noah. Yes, Professor Hall said. Then Mr. Mercer reasonably understood that he could make strategic decisions. Presentation authority is not ownership authority, and strategic discretion does not include forging a signature. Priya, Matteo, and Jordan testified about repository permissions. A middle school administrator described the pilot agreement. Maya's newspaper article was not admitted as evidence, but the original documents behind it were. Then Sloane entered. She wore a navy suit and no jewelry. The absence of the silver key was noticeable only to me. She admitted that she knew I held the controlling interest in Lumen. She admitted encouraging Noah to treat the legal structure as outdated. She admitted posting the debate video and using private information about my anxiety to argue that I should not represent the project publicly. Did you know Ms. Bennett and Mr. Mercer were still in a relationship? The chair asked. Sloan looked at me before answering. No, I knew they had been together. Noah told me they ended the relationship in October and were maintaining appearances because of business and family connections. Did you verify that with Ms. Bennett? No, why not? Her jaw tightened. Because I did not want an answer that complicated what I wanted. It was the first fully honest sentence I had ever heard from her. Noah stared at the table. The chair asked whether Sloan had participated in forging documents. No. Did you believe Ms. Bennett approved your appointment as co-founder? At first, yes. Later, I had doubts. What caused those doubts? Noah refused to show me an approval. He said Claire would accept it after nationals because she did not like confrontation. I felt Elena's hand close lightly around mine beneath the table. There it was again. My avoidance had not protected peace. It had become a resource other people planned around when it was my turn to speak. Noah finally looked at me. I described Lumen's origin, the ownership structure, and the limits of Noah's authority. I answered questions about shared passwords, technical workflows, and my decision to suspend the grant. Then the graduate student representative asked, "Why did you allow Mr. Mercer to receive sole public credit for so long?" The room became quiet. I did not think I was allowing sole credit. I said, I thought I was dividing labor with someone I trusted. When articles left me out, he told me the people who mattered knew the truth. I accepted private recognition because I believed our relationship made public recognition less important. And now I understand that credit is not vanity, it is a record of responsibility. When my name disappeared, so did my authority to prevent harmful decisions. Noah's eyes filled with tears. I continued because stopping would have been another form of protecting him. He did not only take praise, he used the absence of my name to convince people that my approval was unnecessary. That is why this matters beyond our relationship. The panel recessed for 4 hours. I walked along the river path with Elena while we waited. Bare branches reflected in dark water. I had imagined feeling triumphant after telling the truth. Instead, I felt emptied out. What if they believe him? I asked. They may believe parts of him, Elena said. People are rarely entirely false. That does not make the documents less real. At 6:20, we returned. The panel found Noah responsible for plagiarism, falsification, unauthorized system changes, misrepresentation, and misuse of grant resources. The data violation was referred for separate institutional review. His National Innovators Fellowship was revoked. Wellington withdrew its Rhodes endorsement. He was removed from the Innovation Council, barred from representing Lumen, and suspended for the remainder of the semester. His graduation would be delayed pending completion of an ethics program and restitution process. The panel stopped short of expulsion. Noah closed his eyes. I felt no joy. Sloan's separate conduct outcome arrived the next morning. She was removed as senior class president, suspended from university-sponsored leadership roles, and placed under a no-contact order. The harassment finding would remain in her disciplinary record. Because she had not forged documents or accessed raw student files, she was not suspended academically. Some students said the sanctions were too harsh, others said they were too light. For me, consequences did not feel like a scale balancing perfectly. They felt like doors closing one by one, each with a different sound. The door to Noah's fellowship, the door to Sloan's effortless campus influence, the door to the future I had planned. That last one hurt the most. The first Monday after the hearing, I returned to the incubator as Lumen's acting project director. The title felt too large when Dean Alvarez said it and too accurate when I saw it printed on the temporary access badge. For years, Noah had occupied the glass office at the front of the suite while I worked at a desk near the server room. The office contained framed magazine covers, fellowship certificates, photographs with donors, and a whiteboard crowded with his handwriting. Facilities had packed his personal belongings into 3 boxes. The shelves looked strangely bare. "You can use the office," Priya said. I stood in the doorway. "Take down the frosted film." She looked surprised. Noah had covered the lower half of the glass. Because he said important conversations required privacy. I want the whole wall clear, I said, and move the large table in here, no permanent desk. Within an hour, the room became a shared meeting space instead of a throne. The engineering team gathered around the table while I explained the recovery plan. We would rebuild the demonstration environment with synthetic data, restore the privacy controls Noah had removed, invite the partner schools to review the changes, and establish written approval rules for every release. We are not going to nationals this cycle, I said. Matteo looked disappointed but nodded. We could still make the deadline if we work nights, Jordan said. We could also repeat the exact culture that created this problem. The room went quiet. I had once mistaken exhaustion for commitment. Noah praised all-night work because it made his promises possible. I had praised it too, especially when I was the person fixing what he promised. No one stays after 8. Without a real emergency, I continued, no one uses personal accounts for company files. Every major technical decision gets 2 reviewers. Public credit follows documented contribution. Priya smiled faintly. That last one should not sound revolutionary. No, I said, it should not. The most difficult decision involved the fellowship grant Bennett Educational Trust could have withdrawn permanently. Several trustees recommended it. They argued that Wellington had benefited from my invisibility and failed to supervise Noah's conduct. My father's longtime advisor wanted the funding moved to another university. I understood their anger, but hundreds of students had applied to programs supported by that grant. Cutting them off would not punish the people who ignored me. It would punish students who had never entered the atrium on Valentine's Day. I proposed a restructuring instead. The trust would restore funding under independent oversight. No single student founder could control representation, finances, or data access. The fellowship selection process would require contribution audits. Student teams would receive training on intellectual property, power imbalances, and credit attribution. Most importantly, the program would create protected reporting channels for students who feared retaliation from teammates, donors, or socially powerful peers. At the trustee meeting, one member asked whether I was being too forgiving. No, I said, I am separating accountability from destruction. That distinction became my answer to nearly everything. I did not want to destroy Lumen because Noah misused it. I did not want to destroy the fellowship because Wellington failed me. I did not want to destroy myself by turning every future decision into a reaction to betrayal. Still, rebuilding was not noble every day. Sometimes it was boring. I spent hours correcting vendor permissions and answering questions from nervous school administrators. I reviewed legal language until every sentence looked identical. I met with parents concerned about student data. I apologized for risks I had not created because leadership meant taking responsibility for the system. Not only the parts that made me look good. The campus attention faded as midterms approached. A new controversy replaced us on anonymous message boards. Students stopped turning when I entered the dining hall. The quiet should have been a relief, but I had changed too much to return to my old position. I began speaking in meetings before someone invited me. I corrected professors when they referred to Noah as Lumen's founder in the singular. I accepted a panel invitation and practiced until I could answer questions without reading from cards. When my voice shook, I kept speaking. After the panel, a first-year student named Elise waited near the door. I have a speech disorder, she said. I thought leadership was something people gave you after you stopped sounding nervous. I knew exactly what she meant. Leadership is often what you do while sounding nervous, I told her. She smiled and asked whether Lumen hired interns. We did by the end of the week. On the last Friday in March, the middle school pilot restarted with the rebuilt system. I watched from the back of a classroom as students logged in. No balloons, no applause, no cameras. A boy frowned at a fraction problem, answered incorrectly, and waited for the red failure message common to most learning platforms instead. Lumen displayed a diagram based on the path of his mistake. He leaned closer. Oh, he said, I see it now. That quiet sentence mattered more than every award Noah had accepted. For the first time since Valentine's Day, the project felt like mine again, not because I controlled it, because I remembered why I built it. Noah appealed the disciplinary decision in April. His attorney argued that the panel had been influenced by public pressure and by my financial relationship with Wellington. The appeal did not deny the copied signatures. Instead, it claimed Noah believed he had implied authority because we were long-term partners and co-founders. He sent me a letter asking me to support that interpretation. I read it in Elena's office. Claire, I am not asking you to forgive what happened between us. I am asking you to acknowledge that our work never followed strict boundaries. You trusted me to act for Lumen. I trusted you to handle the technical and legal details. We were building a life and a company together. Please do not let the worst day of our relationship redefine every decision that came before it. The letter was beautifully written. Noah had always been skilled at arranging truth, so the most important part stood just outside the frame. We had shared passwords in high school, we had divided responsibilities informally. I had trusted him. None of that gave him permission to copy my signature after I explicitly rejected a proposal. I declined to support the appeal. 2 days later, a group of Noah's friends published an open letter accusing the university of retroactively criminalizing collaboration. They described him as a first-generation college student whose future had been destroyed by a billionaire donor's daughter. The description was technically true and emotionally manipulative. Noah was the first in his immediate family to attend an elite university. My family had money. Those facts mattered. They just did not erase his choices. The open letter spread quickly because it offered everyone a cleaner story. Privileged woman weaponizes institution against ambitious man. It was easier to discuss than the actual story, in which privilege and vulnerability existed in the same people. I had financial power and social anxiety. Noah had less money and far more public influence. Sloan had wealth, gendered expectations, and a talent for cruelty. The university protected its reputation until documents made inaction riskier than action. No one fit comfortably into a slogan. For 3 days, I received messages calling me vindictive, unstable, and spoiled. Someone taped a fake Valentine card to the incubator door. Roses are red, money is green. Reject Claire Bennett, and she'll end your dream. Priya tore it down before I arrived, but another student had already sent me a photograph. I stared at the image for a long time, then I printed it and brought it to the student conduct office. The old Claire would have hidden the evidence because reporting it felt dramatic. The new Claire was learning that documentation was not drama. That afternoon, I agreed to speak at a university forum on donor power and student accountability. Some advisors told me not to attend. They feared hostile questions. That was exactly why I went. The auditorium was full. Maya moderated. Faculty, students, and community members submitted questions electronically. The first difficult one appeared within minutes. Would Noah have received the same punishment if Claire Bennett's family did not fund the program? Dean Alvarez answered first. The evidence supported the sanctions under university policy. Maya turned to me. Do you want to add anything? Yes. I think it is reasonable to ask whether the university acted faster because my family has influence. I also think the answer should lead to stronger protection for students without influence, not weaker accountability for the person who harmed me. The room became still. Another question appeared. Why didn't you report Sloane's bullying earlier? Because each incident seemed too small to survive explanation, I said. Because Noah told me responding would make me look insecure. Because I believed being easy to work with was more important than being safe, and because institutions often ask people to present a pattern before they have access to all the pieces. A student near the front raised her hand. Do you regret funding Wellington? I looked toward the banners above the stage. I regret believing money could replace attention. My family reviewed financial reports. We did not review whose names disappeared from the work. Funding a program does not mean you understand its culture. The forum lasted 2 hours. Not everyone agreed with me. That was not the goal. For the first time, I could hear criticism without immediately reshaping myself around it. The appeals panel upheld Noah's findings and sanctions. The notice arrived on a rainy Tuesday morning. 10 minutes later, Noah called from an unfamiliar number. I almost answered. Instead, I forwarded the number to Elena and blocked it. That evening, I grieved not the appeal, not the punishment. I grieved the boy under the bleachers, the first apartment we planned, the dog we said we would adopt after graduation, and the future in which our worst qualities never became choices. Justice did not cancel love on command. It simply made returning impossible. Sloane requested a restorative conference in late April. The conduct office explained that participation was voluntary. The meeting would not change her sanctions. It was meant to allow acknowledgement, questions, and boundaries. My first instinct was to refuse. Then I realized I still carried conversations with her that had never happened. In some versions, I humiliated her. In others, she confessed that she had always envied me. None of the imagined endings gave me peace. I agreed on the condition that a trained mediator attend. We met in a plain conference room with no windows. Sloane arrived wearing a gray sweater and carrying a notebook, without a podium, designer dress, or group of friends. She looked smaller but not harmless. The mediator asked us to speak from our own experience and avoid debating intent. Sloane went first. "I targeted you," she said. The directness surprised me. I told myself I was challenging someone who had advantages I did not. "You had ownership, family funding, and Noah's loyalty. I had to perform constantly to keep my father's approval. I resented that you could stay quiet and still matter. You decided I did not deserve to matter unless I performed like you." "Yes," she gripped the notebook. "When Noah complained that you slowed decisions, I encouraged him to stop asking you. When he said you were sensitive about public speaking, I used it. I posted the debate clip because I wanted people to see you the way I had chosen to see you." The mediator asked, "What way was that?" "Weak, dependent, in the way." Hearing the words hurt less than the years I spent guessing them. Sloane looked at me. "I am sorry." I waited. She continued, "I am sorry for the video, the meeting changes, the comments, and for accepting the co-founder title when I knew I had not built the company. I am also sorry I did not verify that you and Noah had ended your relationship. I wanted his version to be true." "Why?" I asked, though I knew. "Because being chosen by him felt like beating you." The answer sat between us. Noah's declaration had not only been romantic, it had been a public ranking. Sloane had wanted the room to see her win. "Did you love him?" I asked. She looked down. "I loved how I felt when he chose me. I don't know whether that is the same thing." For the first time, I understood something I did not want to forgive but needed to name. Noah had studied both of us. He knew I wanted private certainty. He knew Sloane wanted public victory. He gave each of us just enough of what we wanted to keep us useful. That did not make Sloane innocent. It made the triangle less romantic and more deliberate. She opened her notebook. I wrote down the ways I harmed you because the conduct counselor said apologies become vague when people are protecting themselves. She read each incident aloud: the altered schedule, the missing panel invitation, the debate video, the rumor that I had been admitted only because of my family, the emotional support coder comment, the messages urging Noah to remove my access. When she finished, the page trembled in her hand. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "Nothing." She swallowed. "I wanted to say it without making you discover it in another investigation file." The mediator turned to me. "Is there anything you want Sloane to understand?" I looked at her. "You were not wrong that I had power," I said. "You were wrong to believe power meant I could not be harmed. You saw my family name and decided everything else about me was performance. Then you used the exact vulnerabilities you claimed were fake." Sloane nodded, tears in her eyes. "You also do not get to make Noah the whole explanation," I continued. "He lied to you, he encouraged you, but you made choices when he was not in the room. I know, I am not ready to forgive you. I know, and we will not be friends. I know that too." The meeting ended without a hug in the hallway. Sloane stopped me. "My father wants me to transfer," she said. "He thinks Wellington has become hostile." "What do you think?" "I think leaving would let me pretend everyone else caused this." I had no advice for her. Her growth was not my assignment. "I hope you make an honest decision," I said. She gave a small, sad laugh. "That sounds like you." "No," I replied, "it sounds like the person I am trying to become." Noah came to my apartment 3 weeks before graduation. He knocked once. By then, the campus no-contact restrictions did not prevent him from approaching me because I had never requested an order against him. Elena had advised me to change that. I had not Partly because a stubborn piece of me wanted to believe 4 years of love deserved one final conversation that was not conducted through attorneys, I opened the door but did not invite him in. He looked thinner, his hair had grown over his collar, and there were shadows beneath his eyes. Without the tailored jackets and constant schedule, he looked closer to the boy I remembered. That resemblance was dangerous. "I won't stay long," he said. "All right." He glanced at the security chain hanging unused beside the frame. "You trust me that much?" "No, I trust myself to close the door." He accepted the answer. For a moment, we listened to traffic on the wet street. "I lost the appeal," he said. "I know. My internship withdrew the offer." I said nothing. "The roads committee confirmed I cannot reapply through Wellington. My graduation is delayed until December." "I know that too." He rubbed his hands together. "I used to imagine failure as one big event, a rejection letter, a company collapse, something dramatic. It's actually 100 emails removing you from things one at a time." I thought of all the times my name had disappeared quietly. "Yes," I said, "it is." He looked at me then. "I'm sorry." The words did not break me anymore. For what? For cheating, for lying to Sloane, for the signatures, for the applications, for letting her hurt you. He closed his eyes. For helping her hurt you. The correction mattered. I kept telling myself the project needed one clear leader. He continued. "Then I started believing being the leader meant I was the project. Every award made the lie easier. Every time you fixed something quietly, I treated it as proof that our arrangement worked. Because it worked for you." "Yes." Rain gathered along the fire escape outside my window. He looked past me into the apartment. I had moved the overnight bag months ago, but the chair where my black dress had rested remained in the same corner. "Were you ever going to tell me about Sloane?" I asked. "I told myself I would after nationals." "That is not an answer." He swallowed. "I don't know. I think I wanted you to make it easy. I wanted you to notice I was gone and end things quietly, so I could say we grew apart." The honesty was crueler than another excuse. "You wanted me to erase myself from the relationship the way I erased myself from the company." "Yes." My eyes burned, but I did not look away. "Did you love her?" "I loved who I was around her. Important, fearless, public. And me." His face folded with grief. "I loved who I could be because of you." There it was, the sentence that explained everything. Sloane made him feel admired. I made him capable. Neither was the same as loving another person fully. "Are you sorry because you hurt me?" I asked, "or because everything fell apart?" He looked down at the floor. "A month ago, I would have said both because it sounded better. Now I think the truth is that I understood the second part first. I lost the fellowship, the company, my reputation. And then I finally had enough silence to understand what I did to you." I nodded slowly. "That may be the first apology you have given me. I know it doesn't fix anything." "No." "Will you ever forgive me?" The question carried no demand, only exhaustion. "I hope one day I can remember you without anger," I said, "but forgiveness will not mean access. It will not mean friendship. It will not mean that what happened becomes acceptable." He wiped his eyes with the heel of his hand. "I keep thinking about the first science competition," he said. "You were under the bleachers, and I thought you were the smartest person I had ever met. I was the same person on Valentine's Day." "I know." "No, you knew the facts. You stopped respecting what they meant." He nodded. I reached behind the door and picked up a small cardboard box. Inside were his books, a sweatshirt, 2 framed photographs, and the key he had once used to enter my apartment. He took it with both hands. "At least let me say one thing that isn't an apology," he said. I waited. "Lumen is better with you leading it. It probably always would have been." I felt no satisfaction, only a quiet closing. "I did not need you to fail for that to be true," I said. "I know." He carried the box down the stairs. At the landing, he looked back once. I closed the door gently. This time, I did not stand behind it listening for his footsteps to stop. Wellington's graduation ceremony took place beneath a bright May sky. I almost skipped it. My degree had been completed, but the past semester had made every campus tradition feel contaminated. I did not want to walk beneath banners celebrating community while remembering how easily that community had accepted my absence. My father changed my mind. "You are not attending to thank Wellington," he said. "You are attending because you earned a degree." He arrived wearing a blue tie my mother had given him. Elena sat beside him, Priya, Matteo, Jordan, and Professor Hall found seats near the front. Noah was not permitted to graduate that spring. Sloane attended but did not sit with the student leaders. She crossed the stage quietly when her name was called. We did not speak. When I opened the printed program, I found a section titled Student Innovation Honors. Claire Bennett, co-founder and chief architect, Lumen Learning Systems recipient, Wellington Award for Ethical Innovation. I read the lines twice a year earlier. Seeing my name in print would have felt like proof that I mattered. Now it felt like a correction. Necessary, incomplete, and late. Dean Alvarez had asked me to give a 5-minute student address about ethical leadership. I had refused twice. Then Elise, the first-year student with the speech disorder, told me she had accepted a presentation role in her design class because of what I said after the panel. Leadership is often what you do while sounding nervous. So I stood behind the graduation podium with my hands shaking beneath the sleeves of my gown. Thousands of faces filled the lawn. I did not pretend not to be afraid. When people speak about leadership, I began, they often speak about confidence, visibility, and the ability to command a room. Those qualities can be useful. They can also become costumes. The wind lifted the corner of my notes. I spent much of college believing that contribution mattered more than credit. I still believe contribution matters most, but I learned that credit is not merely applause. Credit tells a community who is responsible, who has authority, and who must be heard when something goes wrong. I looked toward the engineering students. Silence can be a preference. It can also become a space other people fill with stories that benefit them. Institutions have a duty not to confuse the loudest story with the truest one. And those of us who prefer quiet have a duty to speak before our absence becomes someone else's permission. My voice shook on the last sentence. I continued anyway. Ethical leadership is not perfection. It is building systems that do not depend on one person being perfect. It is documenting decisions, sharing authority, protecting disagreement, and giving people credit before a crisis forces us to count what they did. I did not mention Noah. I did not need to. When I arrived at Wellington, I thought strength meant never needing the room to know what I had survived. I leave understanding that strength can also mean making the record clear enough that the next person does not have to survive the same thing. The applause began slowly. For 1 second, the sound pulled me back to Valentine's Day, white dress, silver key, Noah's mouth on Sloane's, my red bag slipping in my hand. Then I looked at Priya, standing to clap, at Elise wiping her eyes, at my father holding my mother's photograph against his chest. This applause was not the same. That afternoon, I removed my graduation gown and walked alone to the bench behind the library. The trees were green now. Students had tied faded ribbons to the branches during exam week. I sat where I had suspended the grant 3 months earlier. My phone held no missed calls. The quiet felt chosen. I opened the New York reservation I had cancelled on Valentine's Day. The email still contained photographs of the hotel and the restaurant near Washington Square. For a moment, I considered booking the same trip alone. Then I chose somewhere Noah and I had never planned to go. I bought 1 ticket to Lisbon for July, a year after the Atrium Confession. I returned to Wellington for the launch of the rebuilt National Innovators Fellowship. The Student Center had been decorated for Valentine's Day again. Red paper hearts hung from the balconies. A string quartet played near the stairs. The resemblance was so exact that I stopped at the entrance. My body remembered before my mind did. Cold fingers around bent train tickets, the flash of a silver key, the sound of 200 people celebrating a story that required me not to exist. Then Elise waved from the stage. She was now a sophomore and one of 12 fellowship finalists. Beside her stood students from public universities, community colleges, and small rural programs that had never previously sent teams to Wellington. The restructured grant paid travel costs and required contribution records from every project member. No one could be listed as a founder without documented work. No one person could control funding, data, and public representation. Every finalist had access to an independent advisor. The rules were not romantic. That was why they mattered. Lumen had changed too. We had converted the company into a public benefit corporation, expanded the middle school pilot to 6 states, and created a paid fellowship for students with communication disabilities. Priya became head of engineering after graduation. Matteo led school partnerships. Jordan designed our privacy audit system. I served as chief executive for 8 months, then hired an experienced education leader named Dr. Renee Lawson to handle daily operations. I became executive chair and returned to the work I loved most: product design, research, and long-term strategy. The difference was that I no longer confused choosing a quieter role with surrendering authority. My name appeared on the website, so did everyone else's before the ceremony. Maya found me near the staircase. She was graduating that spring and had accepted a job at a national newspaper. Anniversary interview, she asked, lifting her recorder. No. One question. I smiled. 1. Do you think what happened was the best thing that ever happened to you? I looked across the atrium. Sloan was not there. She had completed her degree and taken a communications job at a non-profit in Chicago. 6 months earlier, she sent me a short email saying she now worked under a supervisor who required written credit logs for every campaign. She wrote, "I used to think those rules were insulting. Now I understand they protect the person in the room with the least social power." I did not reply, but I kept the message. Noah had finished his degree in December. The university prohibited him from holding leadership positions during his final term, and the civil case ended with repayment of misused funds, transfer of his remaining Lumen shares, and a formal acknowledgement that he had no claim to the source code. He took a job at a small education nonprofit in Vermont in January. I received a handwritten letter from him. He did not ask for forgiveness. He wrote that his office had no communications department, so he spent mornings helping teachers reset passwords and afternoons entering support tickets. For the first time, he said, his work was useful even when no one knew his name. At the bottom, he wrote, "I finally understand that being trusted was the greatest thing I achieved, and losing your trust was not something that happened to me. It was something I did." I placed the letter in a box with old photographs. Not every closed chapter needed to be burned. Maya waited for my answer. "No," I said, "betrayal was not a gift. I learned from it, but I will not thank it for hurting me." She lowered the recorder slightly. "What was the gift?" "Then, the people who told the truth, the systems we changed, and the part of me that stopped believing love required invisibility." Maya nodded and turned off the recorder. The ceremony began at noon this time. I stood on stage because I had chosen to. I announced the fellowship finalists one by one, reading every team member's name. When Elise approached the microphone, her first sentence caught in her throat. The room waited. She breathed, tried again, and continued. No one rescued her. No one looked away when she finished. The applause rose around her. Afterward, I walked through the quad alone. Snow had fallen the night before, but the afternoon sun was melting it from the stone paths. Students carried flowers, balloons, and boxes of cheap chocolate. A boy knelt near the fountain to ask someone to be his girlfriend, and his friends cheered when she said yes. The scene did not make me bitter. That surprised me. For months after Noah, I treated romance like a room with a hidden exit. I went on no dates. I ignored introductions. I traveled to Lisbon alone, learned enough Portuguese to order coffee badly, and watched the sunset from a hill where no memory belonged to anyone else. Eventually, I met Daniel Brooks at a privacy conference in Seattle. He was a doctoral student in public policy with an unfortunate habit of asking 5-part questions. We argued about student consent models for 40 minutes before he realized I was the person whose paper he had criticized. He apologized for the tone, not the disagreement. That distinction interested me. We exchanged research notes for months. When he asked me to dinner, I said I was not ready for promises. He said dinner was pasta, not a merger agreement. We had been seeing each other for 3 months. By the next Valentine's Day, he did not attend the Wellington ceremony. I had not invited him, and he did not treat that boundary as rejection. Instead, he sent a message: "Hope the launch goes well. I'm proud of the work. Call when you're free." Not before. I read it on the bench behind the library. Then I opened the small envelope he had mailed to my office. Inside was no jewelry, no dramatic declaration, no claim on my future. It contained a bookstore gift card and a note: "For whatever story you choose next." I smiled. A year earlier, I had written Noah a card that said, "For years, And I still choose you. I had believed choosing someone meant staying through every version of them, including the version that used my love as cover. Now I understood choice differently. I could choose someone and still choose boundaries. I could love work without surrendering credit. I could forgive without reopening a door. I could be generous without making myself available for theft. Most importantly, I could choose myself without turning that choice into revenge. People later asked whether I won. They wanted the story arranged like a competition. Sloane lost her title, Noah lost the fellowship, and I took control of the company. Therefore, I won, but that was still the language of the atrium. Where love was a prize awarded in public and one woman's victory required another woman's humiliation, I did not win because Noah fell. I did not win because Sloane apologized. I won the day I stopped waiting for the people who erased me to announce that I existed. The strongest revenge was not destroying Noah's future, it was refusing to let his choices define mine. The truest justice was not the hearing, the sanctions, or the repayment agreement. It was a classroom where a child could make a mistake without being treated like a failure. It was a fellowship where every contributor's name appeared on the program. It was a young woman with a shaking voice finishing her sentence because the room understood that confidence was not the price of being heard. I sat beneath the bare branches until the afternoon light turned gold. Then I called Daniel. "Are you free?" he asked. "I am now. What do you want to do tonight?" I looked across the quad at the student center, bright with paper hearts. For the first time, Valentine's Day felt like a date instead of a wound. "Something simple," I said. "No surprises." He laughed. "I can manage that." I stood and walked toward the gate, leaving one set of footprints in the melting snow, not because I was alone, because they were mine.